So I'm Allie. Thanks for coming today. Have you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, I'm Regina Hiremath. I'm the founder of Alamonia Life, divorce blog with a private community, motivational speaker. Um, I'm also an executive board member for a domestic violence organization and recently certified life coach and travel agent.
Wow, busy woman.
Yes. Oh, and I'm a hair and makeup
Oh, wow.
professional as well.
I love
Mother of
it. You gotta
three.
stay busy. Oh my goodness. All right. So now we'll get into it. Um, would you just like to tell us a little bit about your family dynamic as you were growing up and kind of what that looked like for you as a child?
Okay. So my parents were young and incapable of raising me. As far back as I can remember, I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandmother. She was my first memory of love. And when just before I started kindergarten, she and I relocated out of state. We were having a new home built. Such an exciting time of life to watch the home wrap up. And then I started kindergarten. Unfortunately, when I was in first grade, she passed away from cancer. And the family came together and decided that it was time for my mom to step up to take care of me. I relocated back out of state to live with my mom for second grade. My mom was very unstable financially, emotionally, mentally, and we were moving around a lot, staying with people. And during that time, I was suffered trauma and abuse in nearly every way. I ended up injured and in the hospital. The case went to court. My mother lost custody of me, and my grandmother's sister stepped up to raise me. So I had to relocate out of state again and to live with her, only to discover that my great aunt was an alcoholic, terribly abusive, physically, verbally, and emotionally. I survived 10 years of that. And at the age of 17, I grabbed a trash bag and I ran away with a few items. I landed with my best friend for a few days while I figured out my next move. I ended up going to a completely different state with where my mom was living and came into early adulthood pretty scarred. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I am so sorry that you had to go through all that. That is a lot.
Yes.
Um, so during all that time, obviously a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos. Did you ever feel like maybe as a child you were put in a different role that maybe you didn't ask for? Like maybe I know sometimes children who go through that feel like they're the parent at times or
Yes.
anything like that.
I was definitely a parentified child from the age of 6 or 7, living with my mom. I always felt like I was the one in charge. I remember one particular night when she left the apartment to go buy cigarettes, and she'd been gone for some time. And um, this the corner store was just a couple blocks up the street, and I remember going to look for her. I'm 7 years old. I went down the street at night, went into the store, didn't see her, came back into the apartment and locked the door.
Wow. So you mentioned that, of course, when you started your adulthood, you had lots of trauma. How did that affect you going forward?
I lacked self-esteem, confidence, was seeking approval and love, not exactly even sure what that even looked like. My last true memories of love was kindergarten and first grade. So I was very exposed, coming into adulthood, looking for things outside of myself and not finding it, finding more trauma. Yeah.
And were you ever able to speak with anybody about this, whether it be professionally or if you had other family members or friends to kind of let them know what was going on?
No, no, no one really knew, the things that I was going through. It was happening quietly, other than when in second grade the case went to court. Of course, it came out, but um, a lot of it was hidden.
And what kind of emotions do you think really stood out for you? Doesn't have to be when you were a child, but maybe just throughout your life. Did you have a common theme or
Just lots of fear, not being. I think one of the biggest things was that I couldn't spot a red flag.
right? Because that's kind of all you grew up
Everything,
around,
everything was a red flag. So all of the red flags felt like comfortable banners.
right? So you got out into adulthood. Now you're doing all of these things, doing it all, being the strong woman that you are. How did you get to this spot?
How did I get to this spot? Well, um, in my mid-20s, I met someone and fell in love. Um, 2 to 3 years later, we got married. And prior to the marriage, there were red flags, but of course, because those felt comfortable to me, I was unable to see the amount of trouble that I was in. I spent 23 years in the marriage that was shadowed by narcissistic abuse, financial, emotional, and verbal abuse. I sought therapy halfway through the marriage, all the way up until just recently when I ended my therapy. But it was quite a struggle because I was made to feel as if all of our problems rested at my feet. If I could change myself, if I could be better, if I could do things smarter, then the marriage would work and be successful. And 23 years of that is a really long time, but 6 years prior to me finally leaving, I'd filed and attempted to leave, and he begged me to stay. I took a few days to think about it and said, if you see a psychologist, then I will stay. So for 4 years, we saw a psychologist, one step forward, two steps backward. It just never really improved in the right direction. After 4 years, I decided that I'd had enough. So I spent the fifth year in therapy to get myself strong enough to do what I knew was going to be the best decision of my life. It wasn't easy. I worked really hard during that year. And January of 20, I filed for divorce and I never looked back.
Good for you.
So, yeah, thank you.
That takes a lot of bravery and strength and really just pushing through that fear. And a lot of people, I think, um, 23 years is a very long time, like you said. Um, and I think a lot of people who've never been through that or, they don't understand, right? It's easy to say, well, why don't you just go? but it's not that easy at all. And 23 years of that shows you how hard it actually is. So hopefully people who are, when they hear this, they'll maybe that'll get them to understand that it's really not as easy as just snapping your fingers and getting over it.
Right. Because it wasn't like I had a safe place to land. There was no one. I mean, if it were just me, it would be easy for me to walk away. But by the time I filed for divorce the first time around, it was me and three other people.
Right.
And I had no one who could take us in. I had to be the answer. I had to find the solutions. I had to do the work.
Right. And how did your kids take it?
It was difficult for them to understand. And I'm sure that they they felt like, like I was ripping everything apart at the time, but they're older now.
Right. Right. They got through it and they're okay. And
Yes.
that's the most important part.
Yes. I put them in
Um,
therapy as well.
yep. Okay. Um, let's see here. So out of all the stuff you went through, what do you feel like the hardest decision you made was for you?
To walk out that door. Because my whole life I have been told that I was not smart enough or that I was not worthy.
And now here you are, proving that you are.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I feel like, we probably all know someone who's also gone through something like this, maybe not to that extreme, maybe a lot lesser, maybe a lot worse. Um, do you have people that you connect with now as an adult, or, you're doing a lot of things. You said you're a domestic violence advocate. So have you connected with people of all walks of life and kind of,
I,
go
I
ahead.
have through my divorce blog, Alimony of Life, and that's probably where I've connected the most with people because as you said, I sit on the executive board for Confronting Domestic Violence. I'm also head of community relations there. I don't deal with victims on that side. They would all be here in the house with me. So I really couldn't. That would be a difficult challenge for me to see people in a situation not want to bring them home and feed them and love on them. Um, but through my divorce blog, I have encountered many people who have been in abusive situations. And a few years back, a friend of mine, she sent a close friend of hers to me. And uh, I have the divorce blog, I have the private community. It's about educating them and sharing the things that me and the other writers have been through and whatever helpful information I can find for them. I'm not someone who deals with, victims, but because this was a close friend and her friend, I stepped in on a personal level to support her as she walked away from her abusive marriage. And the interesting thing about it was is that her story was so identical to mine that I could tell her what he was going to do before he did it. And it triggered me. It really did. And I had to take some time to work through my own triggers, but thankful that I was able to do that and to support her. Um, a few years, a year or two later, I was coming out of work, had on my mask during COVID, and a woman was approaching me in her mask, and she called my name, and I looked at her because I didn't recognize her, and she pulled down her mask, and it was that young woman. And I remember just a sense of accomplishment and joy that I felt. And I asked her how she was doing, and she said that the divorce was final and that she and her son were doing well, and she was continuing on with her PhD program. So made me very, very happy.
Right. As it should. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Um, so when you finally, you said you were going through, therapy together for all those years, and then finally you were like, you know what? I'm doing this for me and your kids. But did you ever feel any sort of guilt that you were about to, quote unquote, break up the family, take your kids somewhere else, even though it was for the better? But I still, I think that sometimes when we do things for the better, we still have those negative emotions that come over us, the fear, the guilt, the anger.
Absolutely. I had struggled with fear and guilt for years, halfway through the marriage, all the way through the end, because I had such a traumatic childhood, and my parents never married, and so the fact that I had married and this beautiful, big, beautiful home and these nice cars and the ability to travel and do all of these amazing things as a business owner and supporting him in his endeavors, I felt an extreme amount of guilt because from the outside, it was like a fairy tale. It appeared like a fairy tale, and all of my friends and family thought that I was living a dream life. And so I I struggled. Fear and guilt were huge. And even after filing for divorce, um, some of the comments and leading up to wanting to file for the divorce, the comments that I got from friends and family were disheartening because I'm a human with a heart and I matter. And the life that I live and that I want to live matters. And it can't be overshadowed by what you think my life is.
Right. And then this is my last question, but what do you wish more people would understand about complicated family dynamics?
I wish that people would educate themselves on manipulation, control, and abuse so that should someone in your circle find themselves in those circumstances, you would have the wherewithal and the understanding to be supportive of them and not judgmental, and not to say cruel and hurtful things that push them deeper inside themselves and make them even more fearful of stepping out to live a life that they deserve.
I think that's extremely powerful because it's hard enough to deal with it by yourself, but it's also hard enough to open up and immediately be shot down or judged because then you get back in your head thinking, well, maybe am I seeing this different? Am I the one? Is he right? Are they right? Um, so I think that's a wonderful takeaway. Is there anything we didn't discuss that you would like to share, or anything you would like to leave any of the listeners with?
Yes. I would like to welcome people to check out Alimony of Life if they are contemplating going through or challenged on the other side of divorce. It's myself and four other writers. We write from our own experiences. We have, I host a private community, and there's lots of um, amazing information and motivation in there. I also have my memoir, Lessons on the Way to One Some, which is my healing and self-discovery journey through divorce, which published back in October. I share many of the experiences, but most importantly, the lessons that I learned from each and every one of them, and what it is that I'm doing now in my life that makes it so amazing to wake up to every morning. And check out, if you're wanting to support domestic violence, please check out Confronting Domestic Violence. But what I would like to leave people with is, as I was writing the book, one of the things that I talked about in the book was being fearful and sitting down and doing an exercise where I wrote down every single traumatic experience I had been through in my life, fearful to leave my marriage, but it was so important for me to chronicle all of the times that life knocked me down and how I myself got up again. And there was story after story after story. And what I realized was that I had always been, from the age of 7, I had been this amazing, powerful, strong person. And life did lots of things to me that made me forget about that. But in the moment when I did the exercise, um, it fortified my mind and my heart in such a way that I couldn't deny who I'd always been, who I was coming into, and who I wanted to be. So if that's where you are, if you're struggling, you're fearful, think about all the times you've survived. Put that in your pocket and use that to go forward.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. That was great. I think you're very inspiring. I think a lot of people are going to love this.